Dear ladies, thank you very much for your participation in our press call today. My name is Thorsten Schüller. I'm the spokesperson of CureVac. As you know, our Tübingen-based company is very much in the focus of interest in these weeks. We receive many requests from you, from the media, about our coronavirus vaccine activities, about the change on our management, and today about the financial support from the EU Commission. As we are a small team here in Tübingen, we unfortunately cannot handle all your inquiries individually. Therefore, we decided to invite you to this call and give you an update by our entire management. We will do it in English. Also, most of you are German-speaking guys, but we have an international audience today. And we are planning with 45 up to 50 minutes, starting with introductory statement by our management and followed by a Q&A session where you can ask your questions. So that's all from my side. Now I would like to hand over to Franz Werner Haas, our acting CEO.
Hello, everybody. Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to have you in today's call. I'm Franz Haas, Franz Werner Haas, but called Franz Haas as acting CEO. And I warmly welcome you to this call to give us the opportunity to talk about the recent developments in the company and especially the status of our development efforts to fight the coronavirus situation with the development of a COVID-19 vaccine. Given the pace of things which are changing not only the world these days, but also our company with recent press releases and also media audience we had in the recent days, we thought it would be helpful to address exactly this broad audience. Again, thank you very much for dialing in to tell you where we stand and what we do, as we couldn't address all the questions and inquiries by ourselves, which is exactly the format which we have been using today. Before I introduce my colleagues here sitting with me on this at this table, let me just say that the conference call lines these days are very busy for obvious reasons because everybody's trying to stay at home. So therefore, we would apologize and do apologize if the sound is not always so clear as wanted. This brings me to introduce you to my colleagues. On the one hand side, it's Mariola Fortin-Mleczek, our Chief Technology Officer. It's Pierre Kemola, our Chief Finance Officer, and Florian von der Mölbe, Chief Operations Officer and co-founder of Chief Production Officer and co-founder of CureVac. And we have also on the line Friedrich von Bohlen, our Supervisory Board member, and the representative of the Vini Hop Biotech Holding as one of our largest shareholders. And with that, Friedrich, I will lead over to you already now to address the first topic, which is the change in our management. Before we are coming to that, perhaps to just give you an introduction of what CureVac is all about. And the following topics on the agenda will go exactly along these lines. It's a 20-year experienced company based, founded, and still operating on the molecule mRNA. And we are working in 3 different fields, therapeutic fields, which are vaccines, prophylactic vaccines, oncology, and molecular therapy. Today, we want to focus certainly on our vaccine engagement and development efforts. Next to that, since 2006, we are operating GMP manufacturing facilities, as we have been the first company running clinical trials with mRNA. We had to develop at the time our own manufacturing processes and manufacturing units, which is exactly the time when Divini stepped into the cap table of the company. And with that, this is what CureVac is all about. Now we are coming to the management, where I indicated already to hand over to you to talk about the recent changes in the management. Friedrich.
Yeah, Franz, thank you, and welcome everybody. I'm speaking here as member of the supervisory board, and so therefore let me comment on the changes, the many changes here in the last days. So first thing, the company has a clear focus in these days, and we said that clearly, on fighting the corona pandemic. And with this focus and the very strong, let's call it scientific, business and entrepreneurial focus, all parties, including Dan Manny-Keller, Ingmar, and the board, have decided it would be in the best mutual interest for the company if Ingmar, who is another co-founder of the company and who has been CEO for a long time and has been chairman of the board for the last 2 years, with his deep combination of expertise, in particular also on the science, to step back into the CEO position. So that decision was made and was announced, I think, last Tuesday. Unfortunately, Ingmar had a very recent medical situation, and for that reason, the supervisory board, along the governance of the company, installed the deputy CEO, who is Franz, as acting CEO. So for how long will that be? Honestly, I don't know. Surely for some time. Don't ask me what sometimes means. The important message is all the speculations, if this has something to do with the rumors around the White House and the visit in the White House or anything on that is wrong. It is a pure coincidence of things and of timelines. I should also say that the medical situation of Ingmar has nothing to do with Corona itself. The company has an experienced, complete and strong management team, which you will hear from in a moment. And although, as I said, this was an unexpected situation, the company is strongly positioned to approach and address the developments ahead. So having said that, thank you for listening. And if there are further questions later on, happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Friedrich. I'm with the company now for 8 years, and I'm certainly feeling honored for the trust of the supervisory board, but also my colleagues, to be the acting CEO until Ingmar comes back, which we are also very much looking forward to. So this leaves me to enter into the real agenda, I would say, to talk about, first of all, the corona vaccine, what the status is, what we are doing, how we are doing it, and also to give you a flavor of our endeavors in terms of timelines, what we can estimate today according to what we do. Funded by CEPI mainly, and Mariola, my colleague, Chief Technology Officer, will talk about this one. Then I will address also what has been hitting us like a bus, I have to say, Sunday morning when we woke up, that we have been all over the news. We will enter into this one as well. And then certainly coming to, and we will wrap up with a few rumors and talking about our story. We had a press release out there, but we feel, according to the questions which we have been receiving from the audience, that perhaps there should be another statement on top to this, which we are taking the opportunity today. And then also to end up with the news which we have been seeing yesterday, that we talked with the European Commission and how they want to support us. So with this, it leaves me to hand over to Mariola and talking about our coronavirus program.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. As you already heard, here CureVac technology is based on messenger RNA. For some of you who's not familiar with messenger RNA, this is a very exciting molecule. It's invented by nature and carries genetical information how to build different proteins. And it is exactly what we use at CureVac. We have huge expertise collected over 20 years, how to optimize this molecule, how to use it to get different proteins expressed. As you heard, we are active in different fields, also oncology, molecular therapy, but also in vaccines. In vaccines, we have a lot of experiences, positive, also human data showing that this technology can really work and make change in the vaccine development. And how we use this technology, especially now for this COVID-19 situation. What we do currently is to encode one specific protein, which is present in the surface of coronavirus. And this protein is sufficient to activate our immune system and fight against this virus. This concept, very similar concept, we already proved here with our rabies vaccine in humans, and we saw that this technology is very potent, and we see protection with very low dose. And for the COVID, we use exactly the same principle. So currently, technical work is ongoing. Here, we wait for the animal data. We started production of 2 vaccine candidates here for use in humans. And everybody at CureVac is really very fascinated about this program, and we work hardly to be able to start the phase 1 study in early summer.
Thank you, Mariola. So then let's turn to the second topic, what we said about the recent developments in the media, what we saw. What we can say is, obviously, we have been invited and be honored to have been invited by the White House, into the White House, to sit at the same table of other big pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, which are all having the same goal to fight this coronavirus situation. And even more so privileged that we have been the only German company sitting on this table, and to explain also what we do, because that's an international crisis, I would call, which can be and should be fought on an international level there as well, with all the governments certainly caring for their people, which is exactly why they've been elected. And we had the opportunity to be represented by Dan Manicella at the time. Friedrich was talking about it, to talk about CureVac's endeavors, what Mariola was talking about, what we are doing to fight this coronavirus situation and our development efforts, and that we are running against the time as everybody else does, and we are happy to do that. And again, we felt privileged to do that. What we cannot confirm, and this is why we don't know how the media picked this up, we cannot confirm and reject any confirmation that we had at any time before, during, or after the meeting in the White House an offer from President Trump himself or any governmental organizations, which is just not right. We cannot confirm, and that's it. We certainly have been working with different US institutions like DARPA, which is also one of the first believers in our technology to develop vaccines, and certainly are in contact with also other US institutions like NIH and all of that. But this is biotech, it's an international business, but there is no takeover offer from the White House or governmental authorities, neither to the technology nor to CureVac at all as a company. So that statement just needed to get this out very clearly as well. And then the last one is, as we have been invited at the White House, certainly we are also in contact with other political institutions like the EU Commission, where we had yesterday in the team a very good, positive discussion with the President of the EU Commission, Mrs. von der Leyen, and her team, saying, what can you do to fight this? and how can you scale up your manufacturing units, what you have at the moment, and because this is an international concern, what can you do? And that's what we discussed. And I will lead over to Pierre, our CFO, who was in interaction, especially with the European institutions here.
Thank you, Franz. Thank you for the introduction. As any biotech company, innovation company, we are of course close to a lot of governmental, bodies to make sure we can continue to finance our activity. And since the outbreak of coronavirus, we have been very close to the European institution as well as other institutions. We have been working with the teams on detail level, and the culmination was yesterday an hour-long call with President von der Leyen, the Commissioner Gabriel, and the Vice President of the EIB, Ambroise Fayol, to confirm the up to 80 million financing that the European instances would actually provide to the company to provide added capacity and extra, I would say, financial power to be able to bring more products to the market. This is part of the coordinated EU response to the COVID-19 situation, and so we are very grateful for the speed and also the content of the discussions we had with the institution.
Thank you, Pierre. Yeah, now also as a last point we wanted to address today is, so what is it, what makes it so interesting for us to work on this coronavirus? It's not only to get really the right construct on a safe, what Mariola has been saying, on a safe, tolerable and efficacious vaccine in a short period of time, but also how to have this manufactured in quantities which is covering much more than Germany and Europe, and that's what we are really focused on, and therefore I'm leading over to Florian as the Chief Production Officer.
Thank you, Franz. So yes, we are very grateful for the support of the European Commission with this financing, and this will help us to further expand our capacity. So as you know, CureVac really is focused on a thorough development of the vaccines. So it is not only to be very fast in the clinic, but also provide material for a great part of the population who needs it. And exactly for this kind of supply, we will take the financing and accelerate our already started construction to have here enough capacity to provide for the population the right amount of vaccine doses. So that's of course not limited only to Germany or Europe. So our technology should be offered for all that need the technology. The nice thing with our technology is that we can react very rapidly on certain threats that come as the COVID-19. So with small adaptations based on a platform process, we can provide material. So beyond the actual threat of COVID, there will be a kind of preparedness opportunity to use our technology to be very fast and provide also in future a high number of doses for the population.
Thank you very much, Florian. So this brings us to the end of the introduction and what we wanted to say, and lead over to any questions you might have directed to us. And yes, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we will begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star followed by 1 on their touch-tone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star followed by 2. If you are using speaker equipment today, please lift the handset before making your selection. Anyone who has a question may press star followed by one at this time. One moment for the first question, please. The first question comes from the line of Stephanie Haas with CNN. Please go ahead.
Hello, yeah, this is actually not Stephanie Haas, this is Fred. I'm sitting next to Stephanie from CNN, though. I know you guys, and I'm sorry to get back to this topic, I know you guys don't want to talk about it anymore. But the reason why there's been so much media reporting about the possible offer from President Trump is not because the media is getting it wrong, but it's because there have been several German officials who have, in essence, confirmed that it was true. There was, first of all, the German Interior Minister, Mr. Seehofer, and then there was criticism that also came from Heiko Maas, who also said that Germany could not exclusively make a vaccine. Now, on top of this, there is also an interview by your main shareholder, Mr. Hopp, with Sport 1, where he went and he said, and I'm translating this as I go, I'm sorry for that, for me, it is self-evident that it cannot be that a German company develops a vaccine which is then exclusively used in the United States. For me, that is not an option. He was then asked, how did the contact with the U.S. president happen? I did not personally speak with Mr. Trump. He spoke with the company, and I was informed about it immediately and asked what I thought about it. And I knew right away that this was not that this was out of the question. Sorry. Can you comment on that and tell me why Mr. Hopp was informed about talks with Mr. Trump and maybe clarify that situation a little bit? Thank you very much.
Perhaps before leading over to you, Friedrich, I mean, it is quite clear that, and this is obvious, if we as a company are represented in the White House as the only German company, we had quite a few calls of our shareholders and said, well, how did you make it into the White House? The people have been interested, especially as this meeting has been recorded on tape. But with regards, and that's a general statement that some of our shareholders have been asking, okay, what did you do in the White House? Can we know? Because this is, it is quite prominent, obviously. But now leading over to you, Friedrich, for Mr. Hopp.
Thank you. And I mean, there will remain some uncertainty. The point that I can say, and also after speaking to Dietmar Hopp, is the following. I think when I'm looking back, I think the whole rumors or statements, they came up after that White House meeting. And as you say rightly, and I have observed the same, or we have observed the same, I mean, many people commented on things that at least I or the company, as far as I know, were not aware about, namely that there was an offer. So where that so-called offer came from and where that so-called request for exclusivity came from, or even the number 1 billion came from, honestly, no one knows. We all don't know. And what Dietmar Hopp said, or what he wanted to say, was he was kind of summarizing and integrating all the information he had heard and the company had heard. And the company probably said, well, I mean, these are all the statements. And I don't think that the company said, at least not to my knowledge, well, there is an offer, because as far as I know, there is no offer. But if you integrate all these messages, then what Dietmar Hopp was saying, and he said that in an independent statement over the weekend, he said, well, I mean, it cannot happen. It cannot be that a company that I invest in will deliver drugs or vaccines only for an exclusive region of the world. I'm committed to people and to patients worldwide. So he was kind of, I mean, his statement is rather to be seen proactively than to say, well, I know exactly what no one else knows. I mean, he was just summarizing all these information that came up from, honestly, even we don't know.
Yeah. Thank you, Friedrich. Absolutely. And I think it's even more that this technology can be applicable for anyone. And this is what we are working on. And again, there has not been such requests to do it exclusively for the U.S. And therefore, it's even more so interesting to see in the press what it is. What the politicians, and that the other point is, said Mr. Seehofer, Mr. Maas, We also have not been talking to both, and therefore we cannot comment on this.
Okay, thank you.
The next question comes from the line of Jonathan Leake with the Sunday Times, London. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks for an interesting and open conference. This is Jonathan Leake, I'm a science editor at the Sunday Times. A couple of questions. I'm not very interested in all the issues about takeovers and so on. I'd just rather get back to the basic science. So, two things. I wonder if you could just explain roughly how your molecules work. And I ask that because your website is pretty unclear. And I'm also a bit intrigued. You talk on your website about having an RNA printer, presumably something that can produce molecules in large numbers. It describes yourself, it shows a massive building and then says we can produce 1 gram of product every 2 weeks. Is that correct? It seems a bit bizarre. So I wonder if you could just run us through the science and what you eventually hope to produce and how you hope to produce it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. Lead over to Mariola to explain what the molecule does and how we do with the molecule.
Okay.
Yeah, and the amounts.
Okay, the first question. The nature has a very potent mechanism how to fight against all these pathogens, viruses, bacteria. And what we do with our technology, we mimic this approach, this natural approach, how we do this. How we optimize this messenger molecule, how we formulate it mimics this virus situation. And that means that we induce immune response, which is very similar to the natural immune responses. And therefore, this is so potent one. Therefore, the fact that with our approach, with messenger RNA, which encode one specific protein from the virus, the critical one, which is, as I explained, sufficient to mobilize immune system. We do this in such a way that we induce this mechanism, this natural mechanism, which are interferon type 1 mediated, which really helps to induce and to produce huge amounts of potent antibodies, which neutralize virus. And it is exactly what we saw in NTC and the running trial with our rabies vaccine based on exactly the same technology. And also here we see that 1 microgram, 2 doses of 1 microgram each are sufficient to mobilize immune system in the right way and to induce production of protective antibodies above the defined threshold, which means protection. And regarding printer, I think Florian will explain.
Okay, thank you for the question. So strategically, we are going in 2 directions. On one hand, as pointed out already, we have this high capacity before us. So as we now experience for the COVID-19 vaccine that is needed, we have certain or different suites, GMP suites here. So for producing the drug, and we want to have here a seamless path to this high mass production, and therefore also this investment is necessary. On the other hand, you pointed out to the RNA printer. The printer is an automated RNA production system that helps very rapidly to provide RNA vaccines, for example. So this in a smaller amount. We are speaking here in a reduction for a time that we could provide within 1 to 2 weeks around 1,000 to 10,000 doses. So this would be a decentralized option for very rapid reaction for endemic or pandemic outbreaks. So this is going in the other direction, more decentralized or rapid supply of a smaller amount of vaccine doses.
Yeah. So thank you, Jonathan, for the question. It's really, if you combine both the printer in these kind of scenarios, you would take these one to prevent an outbreak on site, that it's not really spreading around. But in a situation where we are today, you're going for bigger batches, which is our upscaled up to GMP 3 and 4, which is our 4 unit, that you really can prevent and produce mass production.
Mm-hmm. And maybe just one additional explanation to our basic science, why our technologies are potent. So to make clear, we use natural nucleotides. We optimize messenger RNA in a different way. We are not using chemically modified nucleotides, and it is exactly which help us to get this very natural immune response and immune activation. And for sure, the formulation expertise which we also have in-house also contribute to the full picture how we mimic this natural mechanism with our approach. Okay. Thank you.
The next question comes from line of Daniel Gard with STAT. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello. Sorry, my question was actually already addressed. You can skip me.
Thank you, Daniel.
We move on to the next question with Hans-Joachim von der Burchardt with Politico. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I want to go back to the first question, because what's still unclear to me is I understood the initial reporting by Welt. It was not really said there was a takeover. There was some sort of offers for researchers going to the United States, or that this specific vaccine, meaning one of your products, is gets an exclusive, that the US gets some exclusive rights to get their hands on it first, or produce it first, or whatever. So can you do you also dispute these specific 2 points, talking of researchers going there, or the vaccine being in whatever format being exclusively or first given to the United States? And also in that context, maybe as a second question, because the German government, the health ministry, said it is really looking into measures to keep the company in Germany, which also seemed to back this reporting up. So if you can just clarify that further. And also the money from the European Commission is also said in the statement that it's they want to keep the research in Europe. Thank you.
Yeah, Hans-Joachim. Again, there was and is no offer from the US, neither with regard to take over the company, nor to have manufacturing slots reserved exclusively. That's absolutely not the case. Secondly, with regard to our scientists, I mean, of course, we have been talking to our people and can confirm there. No, it's also wrong. It's nothing really happened on this end, and even what would the government do with one scientist of CureVac? It's just what we see out of our perspective. It's ill-funded. So the other question you have been asking with is that the government, of course, as we have been invited in the White House, certainly we are also talking with the German government, because that is a crisis we are talking about, and we try with our technology, Mariola has been explaining, which we think is very suitable and manufacturable in huge quantities, which is why we are fighting on all ends. And therefore, of course, the German government, as other parties, are interested. Is this a technology to fight the situation? And therefore, of course, we are talking to them, as we did with the European Commission, where we did get the support for which we are certainly very privileged to have the support. But we need to get this worked out and the vaccine developed. And there is nothing more I really can say to that. Hopefully it answers your question, Hans-Joachim.
Yes, thank you.
Any other question?
The next question comes from a line of Joe Miller with Financial Times. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I have a really simple question, really. After that offer from the EU, do you now have enough funding and resources to accelerate this COVID vaccine as quickly as possible? And have any other state governments been in touch, either with expressions of interest in providing resources or funding of any kind?
So thank you for the question. This is Pierre answering. So indeed, that announcement, I think, will follow with, we'll probably have other ones following. It's a start of a longer story. But, we have to start with the beginning, which is we have about more than a year of cash, which is a classical situation for a biotech company. And so, we expect, of course, as we go forward and as we have more discussions with the regulatory authorities to see what, the clinical approach will become, and of course, what, the requirements in terms of money will become, that we will have, added funding from different, origins.
So the funding of the EU is, and this is what we discussed with the President of the Commission, is really to scale up the manufacturing. If we have got a vaccine and developed, that we are in a situation to produce it as fast as possible, but also for future times, there could well be the next time another virus crossing the countries, and that we need to be prepared. So this is what it's all about.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Joe.
The next question comes from the line of Kathleen Bernard with New York Times. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for taking my question. I'm afraid I'm going to have to just come back to this takeover question one more time, because I'm trying to really understand what went wrong. I was communicating with German officials on Sunday who wouldn't be identified, but we had several of them on top of those sort of public figures that we've already heard about. The ones that weren't identified, one of whom actually sits inside the Chancellery, was saying explicitly that the Americans were trying to take over this company and that the Germans were now trying to defend themselves. So, we have a situation where, if what you're saying is true, there was either a humongous misunderstanding or based perhaps on miscommunication on your company side or on the U.S. government side, or the Germans are sort of extremely freaky and possibly exaggerating things on purpose. I don't know. I'm just trying to understand, and perhaps you can shed light on whether it's possible that the U.S. was possibly offering funding. Maybe there was a very sort of general offer made around that table that was then communicated on by Dan Manicella. Is there anything that helps you explain why several cabinet-level ministers were talking about this, and why even the Chancellor, in an admittedly vague comment, but not nevertheless, yesterday in her press conference, seemed to suggest that the issue was quote-unquote dealt with by the government over the weekend. So there's definitely a sense that something was communicated, even if it was completely misunderstood. The second question, very briefly on the science, could you give us a sense of, and maybe this is impossible, I'm not a scientist, if you have hopes for clinical trials in early summer, or not clinical trials, sort of, trying this out on humans in early summer, can you say what the earliest dates for this vaccine to be available might be? And also, would this then be something that would be administered on a mass scale to sort of all the vulnerable people in all the countries that can get their hands on it? Or would you do it, how would you sort of recommend that this vaccine would be administered?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Catherine. So before we're coming to this also highly regulatory question, the second one, I just give me the chance to respond to the first one. What we only can say as a small biotech company is only out of our box that we haven't had any offer on the table or approach on the table. And as you can imagine, we have been talking to Dan very intensively, whether he had, and he hadn't had either any offer, discussions about the offer. neither with regards to take over the company, nor the technology, nor reserving the slots for manufacturing, or even offering him or us a job. But this is only what we can say. What went on beyond our knowledge, certainly we don't know, because we are focused so much on developing this vaccine to bring it to the people. And this is why I said in the beginning on Sunday morning, also this hit us. If there is something going on behind the curtain, so to speak, we don't know. And certainly we are not going to jump into this kind of speculation. And I know this is not what you have been asking, but only what we can say is what we know. And that's it. No offer, not to us, not to the company. But that the technology is interesting on a global level because it can fight the virus, which is also acting on a global level, that is obvious. And therefore, sorry, I can't give you a much more detailed question beyond to what we know. And therefore, I lead over to Mariola to give you the answer of talking about the product development again.
And very exciting questions here, we get from everybody when the vaccines here could be available. And this is a very difficult question. We cannot really provide a concrete answer. What we can do, and it is our approach here, which is also maybe different to others. From the beginning here, we want to prepare and develop vaccines here, which has potential to be a final vaccine and to be provided to many people very fast. That means we invested time in design of the construct. We test several. We do this technical work as a really to based on this data to make the right selection. And we use our upscale production process also here to have from the beginning material which will be sufficient not only for the small phase 1 or 2, but also for the huge phase 3 study or even for the initial market supply. So this is our approach here to have a sustainable COVID vaccine development plan. And now, what is rather in our hands, also here, we need discussion with the regulatory, is to secure that we will be ready and have enough material and all the data needed here to start clinical development in early summer. And then everything will depend on the data. If you will be able to reproduce or to be in the similar range as we saw with rabies vaccine, there's a very good immunogenicity and very low dose and well-tolerated vaccine, then for sure we will discuss with the regulatory authorities what to do next, how we can accelerate further development, how we can broader and huge maybe phase 3 study. As I said, material for this immediately will be available. We don't need to initiate production again, and then with this data, then always discussing with regulatory authorities what is still needed and required to get this vaccine available to everybody. And for sure, from the logic, the first population will be people which suffer from the virus.
Okay, next question.
The next question comes from line of Armin Zimny with Reutlinger Generalanzeiger. Please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I have two questions left. The first one is a more general one. I would like to know, in this race to develop a coronavirus vaccine, what would it mean to those companies who will be the first to present a vaccine? And would you see yourself in the lead, especially in competition to BioNTech, the company who works, as far as I know, with the same intent and the same aim as you do? And the second question is, why did Dan Menicella had to leave the company? The press information was very, very unclear about that, because as I knew, the company was very satisfied with the work of Dan Menicella, and in my opinion, there would have been no need for him to go. Maybe you can give me some ideas on that too.
Maybe the first question. So there is a lot of other companies also working on vaccine. We focus on our approach. Yeah, our approach is, as I described, we want to have enough material really to go to the end, not only to start something. And we think, it doesn't matter who will start first, but who will really be able to provide vaccine, for the huge population.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know about the data BioNTech has, as you've been mentioning. I think it's an international effort, and it is good that there are so many different kind of technologies in this race. And the race is not that much one against the other. The race is against fight the coronavirus, and we are in the middle of this race as well. And now I would lead over to you, Friedrich, again on this change from Dan Manicheller into Ingmar Hör as a CEO.
Yeah, sure. One comment to the point before. What I also want to say, this is not about mRNA only. It's a big expertise of designing the molecule with a lot of, let's say, expertise and experience. It is the formulation. It is the way you produce it, the way you deliver it. So what I want to say is, and then also, Mariola said that before, we're using natural nucleotides. Others are using modified nucleotides. As far as I know, BioNTech uses modified nucleotides. Let's see what the difference will be. So what I want to say is, it is well possible that several products will hit the market more or less at the same time, some of them being vaccines, some of them being therapeutics. From a patient standpoint, nothing could be better if there's more weapon than one. So that's the first thing. Of course, we want to be among the first, but at least we want to be the best, I would say. Or one of the best at least. On the Dan Manicheller question again, let me say that here from an supervisory board standpoint. What we're seeing, mRNA is still not a accepted molecular class. There's no product on the market yet that is based on mRNA. And CureVac is 20 years old. Moderna now is, I think, 11 years old. BioNTech is, I don't know how old. All I want to say is, although there's this big hope and belief by people in that area that messenger RNA will be a ubiquitous molecule to fight many diseases, the devil is, as I said before, it's not the mRNA, it's everything around the mRNA. It's so many different things that have nothing to do with the molecule itself. So to really bring this in a specific disease, and corona is different from influenza, and influenza is different from prostatic cancer, and prostatic cancer is different from cystic fibrosis, just to span here a bit the picture. There will not be one molecule or one system, so to say, serving them all. Each indication, each disease will need a different product and productization and formulation approach. So we're still in deep, let's say, infant science or infant technology understanding. And now with this corona crisis that really may threaten the world, hopefully not, but we will see. We have seen, and Dan has seen, and again, it was an absolute unanimous, also einvernehmlich, mutual agreement, understanding that this is a time where the deep expertise of someone who integrates that all and brings that now for more than 20 years to the company, namely Ingmar, is the best and the better thing for the leadership of the company than Dan, who is a great guy. I know him for a long time, but this is not his sweet spot of expertise.
Thanks.
Excuse me, I still have to be persistent on that point, because I was wondering, when you say that this topic is so important for your company, so why did not Ingmar Hör went to the White House and spoke with all the officials? Because the coincidence between the visit in the White House and the change in the CEO was very small. So you can wonder if there is any coincidence, or is it?
Perhaps I can give you an answer on this. The invitation to the White House was very short-term. This was within 24 hours. The invitation was done. and that was very, very short. And by that you can see it is a coincidence. And so that's a brief answer. There was not a runway for 3 or 4 weeks in order to attend the White House meeting. Thank you very much, Mr. Simney.
The next question comes from the line of Michael Tilghager from Handelsblatt. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello everybody. I've got again a question regarding the funding of the EU. I'm not quite sure if I understood it right. Is that the money for scaling up the production regarding the trials or the manufacturing later?
So thank you for the question. Pierre answering. No, it's the funding for expanding capacity.
So trials and manufacturing.
No, manufacturing, yes.
Yeah, for both. Certainly material can then used for both.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but the capacity, will be enough to provide how many vaccines for how many people?
Perhaps, Florian, you want to answer this?
So at the moment, the dose is not clear because it has to be shown in the human subject. So if we stick to the doses that we have seen to be efficient in our rabies trial, so we could provide here from our existing facility up to 10 million doses per run per campaign. So and in the new building, it would go up to the billion doses range. So that is the design of the new building.
A billion, I understood right. Okay.
Billion doses range.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next question comes from the line of Kurt Meyer with Focus. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my question. You have said that you are planning to get into animal trials in April and clinical trials in early summer. There are reports that Moderna has already started a clinical trial in Seattle. Is it Moderna? I guess it is Moderna. Can you comment on that? Why are they so much earlier than you?
I already explained our approach is different. Yeah, we make the selection of the construct based on the technical work. And as I explained, yeah, we will start the clinical trial in early summer. Yeah, we are now in the at the technical stage.
But are there any differences in the technology between Moderna and your?
For sure, as I explained, yeah, our approach is based on not chemically modified, yeah, nucleotides, yeah, and we discuss our development plan with regulatory authorities. We aligned on this, yeah, and we follow this advice, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, please limit yourself to one question only. We move on to the line of Philipp Kretzel von Kretz with Ärzte-Zeitung. Please go ahead.
Hello, thank you for taking my question. Very brief medical question. Majola, you were talking about the target group of the vaccine, and I understood you that it could be both used prophylactically and therapeutically, or did I get that wrong? Is it a purely prophylactic vaccine, or could it also be used for people already with symptoms, in case it will be a success, obviously?
So the aim is for sure develop prophylactic vaccines, yeah. So there is currently no hint, yeah, that it could be also, yeah, therapeutic vaccine.
Okay.
Vaccine, yeah.
Thank you.
The next question comes from the line of Inga Vennemann with ARD SWR. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I have a question about the funding of the CEPI and the European Commission. Are there certain stipulations that come with this financial support in terms of commercialization or access for the governments or the people in general for the vaccine in case, like for the time when it's finished? Or can you, as the developer of the vaccine, act totally freely like any other commercial enterprise?
Well, with regards to CEPI, to start with, is certainly they are funding the clinical development of this project in the phase 1. And if this is turning into a project, they certainly have a say with the applicability and of the vaccine. But certainly, this is not ruled out in detail, but because there is a phase 2 and 3 still to follow. And to bring it into the humans in the very broadest sense. So this is where we are there, but certainly there is an expectation, develop a vaccine and bring it to the people. And now coming to the Commission.
Yeah, so to complete the answer on the loan here, I mean, we've been working with the team for some time. We have, we don't have all the nitty-gritty details here. Anyway, there's still a bit of work, but we have the strong commitment, I think, from the EC. What you have to know is that the loan comes, of course, from the European Investment Bank, and it's fully backed by the EU.
And it's good enough for them to say this manufacturing unit to scale up is in Europe, and this is good enough for them to say, let's do the vaccines. And as Florian was saying, in this huge amounts, depending on the dosage, certainly, this will be something which really can be broadly applicable.
Okay, thank you.
The next question comes from the line of Sebastian Balzer with Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thanks for taking this question. Just to put the scaling up in perspective, what was the original size of the manufacturing facility you're building?
Well, we have got 3 manufacturing suites, 2 on a rather limited batch size. Then we just in December last year we had a press release on this one, a new certified one which is 10 times bigger as a batch size, on which we are now also producing the coronavirus vaccine to start with. What Mariola has been talking about, batch size big enough, depending on the dosage again. If the rabies dosage would be applicable here, we are talking about already significant million amount of dosages. But then if you're thinking even bigger, and there we have got a 4th manufacturing facility under construction, and we are constructing it in the way as we would use it for our own product candidates and the one of our partners. But now the situation here is that the Commission said, can you accelerate this one according to the need now? And this is what we are doing. It's the accelerated upscaling of the manufacturing unit, which is anyhow under construction. Okay, so thank you very much on the call for your questions. Happy to have the opportunity to have you on the line and to answer your questions and to give an insight of what we are doing, who we are, and responding to the recent news about CureVac, and hopefully keep you interested in what we are doing. And thank you very much again for your time.